Join us now to debate, well, I don't know if we're going to debate it, what's being called President Biden's death tax, and to explain her stance, former U.S. Senator Heidi Heitkamp. She's also a founding board member of the One Country Project and a CNBC contributor. If they said you and I were going to debate raising taxes, who's going to be on the raising taxes side, Heidi? That's going to be a tough. That's going to be. It's going to be maybe Robert. Maybe Robert will be on that side. But have you always felt this way, or is there a change of heart? Because some people say now you've got this organization and you've got, I don't know, skin in the game or something. What did you change your mind, or have you always been opposed to this, what they're calling a death tax?
Well, let's kind of get this parsed out right, which is the first piece that you deal with is the capital gains tax rate, which you know, because you and I have debated this, I believe should be more equal with earned income. I don't think that unearned income should be taxed at a rate that's so much lower than earned income. The second piece of this is how do you calculate that tax? When you have stepped up basis, it creates an incredible loophole. I have not changed my position on the need for stepped up basis reform. The piece of this that I find most troubling is all of a sudden, for the first time, we are going to be taxing unrealized capital gain. And you remember, Joe, when we were debating or talking about the wealth taxes and talking about some of the proposals from maybe the more progressive members of the Democratic Party during the debate, was really to take a look at the end of the year, we're going to decide which your capital gains were, even though they were unrealized. My position has always been you ought to realize the capital gain. And if I can give an example, which I think kind of says it all for me, it's the example of a Minnesota lake property. Okay, so what's happened in Lake Country is property has appreciated dramatically, which means that rich people come in, they build a house on something that they've torn down, they pay $1.5, $2 million for the lot. They're sitting next to a family-owned cabin where people have owned it for years and years. Let's just take this example to the next level. So the one guy builds a $2 million house on $1.5 million lot. He's got a $4 million basis. On the family-owned lot, probably only has a basis in maybe $30,000. But now, because of appreciation of that property is going to have huge capital gains. Let's say the owners of those two properties die. The guy who inherits the property at $4 million owes absolutely nothing because there's been no capital gains. The truck driver, let's say truck driver Sam, who makes maybe $100,000 a year, all of a sudden now has a tax that he owes on inheriting that property. Not because he wants to sell it or because he feels particularly rich. You know, family assets are about more than a balance sheet. Family assets are about where we work, where we live, where we recreate. And when you look at taxing unrealized capital gains, what you are doing is opening up a Pandora's box that won't be closed for a long, long time.
Are you willing then to say that if you don't realize capital gains, they'll never be taxed then, and they could be passed down generation to generation, and you'll never get it? A lot of Democrats, that's the whole point. They want it. They want that. They want to tax everything.
Well, I don't think that's true. But if you look at what in fact has been the kind of trajectory of this issue, one of the great ironies is that George W. Bush, you may recall, actually eliminated stepped-up basis and went to carry-forward basis when he did his phase-out of the estate tax. You might recall who negotiated 10 years later the package that went through Congress. It was then Vice President Joe Biden who basically rolled back the basis adjustment. I think we need basis reform. I just think that when we are looking at this, to immediately tax upon death or upon transfer without realizing the capital gains is not the way our tax code should work or does work. And what it will mean for American businesses, certainly small businesses and farmers, is that money that they could use basically over that period of time to invest in their businesses, there will always be this sword hanging over their head.
Robert, Right, Robert's still with us. When President Biden loses Heidi Heitkamp, Robert, I'm not sure what to think. That doesn't make the prospect very good for this, I don't think.
Well, it was surprising. Many people don't know that Heidi was actually the state tax commissioner in North Dakota, so she really knows a lot about taxes. But my question to her is, okay, you know, this example you said of the truck driver who owns a property that has been in the family for years, that I think people understand. But the issue here and the revenue is people like Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, who basically, as you know, as we've seen with his ProPublica articles, have been allowed through this loophole and others to basically, because these gains are not realized and therefore won't be taxed, they have been able to basically have almost all their wealth throughout their lifetime, billions of dollars, escape any taxation. And that's the real issue. And according to you, that should still happen.
No, well, let's go back and take a look at what they are reforming in stepped up basis, because you've got to realize that when you're looking at Warren Buffett, he's going to give his billions away. Those and even in the Democratic tax proposal, they still allow for a stepped up basis or tax avoidance for donations to charities. And so this isn't going to affect Warren Buffett. What's also interesting, and I want to make this point about farmers, 40% of the land in this country that is in agriculture is not farmed by the person who owns it. In fact, farmland is owned by a lot of billionaires and a lot of very, very wealthy people. If you exclude farmers, are you going to exclude the people who own the land? Because what could happen exactly in this proposal is when because the tax is immediate, when someone inherits it, if they can't afford to pay that tax, they'll then sell the land. That land will go on the market, and it will be adding to consolidation of agricultural overall. So I'm trying to sound the alarm, both economically and politically for Democrats, that this is not a path to walk, which is taxing unrealized gain. You can look at different strategies for stepped up basis for realizing some income tax when that asset is eventually sold. But the disruption that this would create for small family businesses and for farmers and for family assets is just not worth the pain. In fact, ironically, when it's polled, 70% of Democrats agree with me that death should not be the taxable event.